What's up, Bucs Squad? I'm your host, Jaron Spor. I'm going to tell you why good news could be on the way.
And I'm Marcus Ray. I'm going to tell you the one part that's missing from this Bucs offense that's killing them.
And I'm James Yarcho, and I'm going to tell you why it's now or never for Todd Bowles.
Hey, Tampa Bay, it's the Buccaneers squad. Everything Tampa Bay Buccaneers every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of the Sunshine State, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. With a touch of the Buccaneer way, the Buccaneer Squad Show starts now.
What's up, Bucs Squad? Real quick, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Like I said, I'm your host, Jaron Spor. We've got a preview show for you today. We got a game in 2 days, so it's crazy. It's already upon us, but we're going to go through the injury report, tell you some of the things that Todd Bowles had to say, go around the NFL, look at some of the matchups, including Carolina, who is now right next to the Tampa Bay Bucs in the standings. Then we'll give our score prediction at the end. But first, let's dive into our Bucs and Falcons preview. The first game this year was a 23-20 win for Tampa Bay. That was kind of the start of the cardiac Bucs, if you want to call them that, as they won several games at the very end. But these are two really different teams at this point. Tampa Bay's obviously struggling. Atlanta's really struggling, and Michael Penix obviously is not playing anymore. That one was a weird game because Bijan Robinson didn't have a great game running the football, but went nuts in the passing game. So that is going to be the big question mark if you can contain him, because at least up to this point, Kirk Cousins hasn't shown he's the old Kirk Cousins anymore.
Let it rip, James.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's only not the old Kirk Cousins when he plays anybody other than the Bucs. I mean, that's why he lost his job to Michael Penix last year, because the only team Cousins looked good against was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And look, I am concerned, guys. I don't care if Drake London plays in this game or not. He's been did not participate in practice all week, so his status is up in the air. But to me, it doesn't matter. You still have Darnell Mooney. You still have Kyle Pitts. You still have Bijan Robinson. And I don't care if they're elevating, Steve Urkel from the practice squad when the middle of the field is always open. Kirk Cousins is going to march this team down the field, and eventually they're going to run out of real estate and they're going to find pay dirt, whether that's with Bijan or with Algier or whoever it is. I am extremely nervous about this matchup. And I said on a regular show earlier that it's fitting that they're in the creamsicle orange for this game, because the way they played the last 7 weeks, it's hearkening back to the 1980s Bucs teams.
Well, and I'll tell you this, man, like we went over this Sunday night, and I think I left a few things out. When you look at the Bucs, I don't think that obviously they're not playing very good football. I think they got their chin checked right after the bye week. But I think one of the things that's hurting the Bucs is they can't attack vertical. They have no one to take the top off the defense. So when you watch how the Saints played, it kind of gave me that rope-a-dope feel when Ali fought Foreman. Ali let Foreman punch himself out. The Saints allowed the Bucs to run the ball because their run game doesn't scare anybody. So if you have a bend but don't break, let them ball control and run and wait for one turnover, you don't ever have to worry about Baker Mayfield taking the top off of a defense, or even there's not one receiver out there, I don't think, in the last 7 games that has shown they can run by somebody and score. And when you can do that, then it makes your life easy. If you're Grizzard, if you can dial up a 60-yard bomb and it goes into the end zone, the longer you have the ball, the higher the percentages go up for something bad to happen. The other thing is that the Bucs, I think they got dialed up on that first drive where the Saints got a lot of confidence. So I also said once it got into the chess match with the weather, and then when they both scored on each other, the Saints just said, hey, I'll tell you what, if we get the ball enough times, you'll crack, we'll win. As far as the Falcons go, that was one of the most I'm a Raheem Morris fan. We're the same age. I've been following his career for a long time. I think he's a better coordinator and position coach than he is a head coach. But when you give up 31 points in the second half, then I think his job should be just as much in question as Todd Bowles. I mean, two different coaches going in two different, really the same direction. But the way the Falcons lost with those turnovers, first of all, you open up the third quarter with a big kickoff return. I don't know what's going on in the National Football League with special teams. Just league-wide, it's just some epidemic that's going on, from block kicks, missed extra points, big returns. Obviously, that big return for the Saints, I think, gave them just a leg up for the entire game. It just set the tone for the game to let everybody know what was about to happen 2.5 hours later. But when you watch the Falcons, I mean, Kirk Cousins, check down Cousins. He's a Michigan State guy. Like, I mean, he's definitely not that guy. He's going to finish his career a backup, and I think he still plays like one. But when you watch the Falcons offense, it was atrocious. But more importantly for me, I think for the Bucs, if we're talking straight preview, Jaron and James, I don't know if they even teach tackling anymore at any level of football, high school, college. When you watch the one touchdown pass, I think that Smith and Jigma had. I mean, I don't think the defensive back, all he did was laid one hand on him and let him run in the end zone. Like, that defense played so poorly. Falcons, I'm talking about, run and pass. Almost let's just call it they quit, gave up. 6-6 at halftime, got their back broken. I don't know if the Bucs can do the exact same thing the Seahawks did, because they put their best player, one of their best players, in there at a kickoff return, something he probably doesn't normally do, and he took it to the house just to break the game open. And I think Todd Bowles and these Buccaneers need to find a way to mix it up and find a way to slap somebody in the face. I mean, when are you going to fight back? When are you going to say, we're not losing? You're not coming in here at 2-10 and you're going to take us and flush us down the toilet. So I think there's a lot of air. This is going to be a sloppy game, I think, because you got two teams going in the same direction. I don't think none of us know what to expect. But I do think if the Bucs can duplicate the run game that they showed, as far as statistically, 179 yards, I think it'll give them a great chance. Last thing I'll say is I don't even know if Baker's healthy enough to throw the deep ball after we saw that Hail Mary a couple of weeks ago when he got injured. So the deep ball is missing from the Bucs offense, and they're not good enough to sustain drives.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also a good point about Morris. He's going to be on the hot seat too going forward, because Atlanta had at least somewhat high expectations this year in terms of not high like Super Bowl high, but high enough where they thought they could at least contend for the division, and it's just been a disaster. But Atlanta reminds me, if you look at their schedule, they're very similar to the Cardinals in terms of they're not good record-wise, but they play a lot of teams close. Now, obviously, this last weekend was a blowout against Seattle, but they've lost 7 of their last 8 games. They lost to New England by 1. They lost in overtime to the Colts, overtime to Carolina. They lost to the Jets, obviously, who's not very good, by 3. I mean, they've lost a lot of close games. Obviously, lost to Tampa by 3 to start this season. And so they've been in a lot of football games. And, Bijan Robinson, he's one of those backs that just scares you anytime you play against him, and especially scares you when you don't have a lot of confidence in your own defense. And you mentioned the tackling, Marcus. That's a guy you don't want to be poor tacklers when you go against, because he will make you miss, and he can make you miss in a phone booth. He's one of the best running backs in the NFL for sure. For the Bucs, we just, as Marcus said, why hasn't the fighting back started yet? Because what we've seen the last couple of years, they go through these lulls, but then they end the year pretty strong. And it kind of felt like this year it was going to happen again. Okay, they kind of struggle, but okay, they're at the easy part of their schedule. Here we go. And Arizona wasn't a good game. You won, but it wasn't a good game. Obviously, last week was not a good game. When are they going to just snap out? And maybe it's one of those things that they overperformed early in the year due to all the injuries and stuff. They were overperforming what a lot of people thought, and now they're just kind of coming back to earth, and it's kind of leveling out kind of thing. And that might be it. I don't know.
I think this is a team that's lost confidence in itself. Like, plain and simple, up and down, they have lost confidence in themselves. And it's a reflection of the players. It's a reflection of what they've all been going through this season with, dealing with the injuries and all that. But it's also a reflection of Todd Bowles. And I said at the top of this show, it's do or die for Todd Bowles. If the Bucs lose this game, even if you somehow miraculously win your next 3 games and you beat the Panthers twice, I don't see how Todd Bowles keeps his job. Like, it's going to take an NFC championship run for Todd Bowles to be able to keep this job, because this is the same franchise, the same ownership group. You know, I get it. It was Malcolm back in 2001, but they fired Tony Dungy, who was making the playoffs every year because he couldn't get over the hump. You are now reaching a level where you're wasting the prime of a lot of these players' careers. Mike is not getting any younger. Chris, Baker, Vita, Antoine, they're not getting any younger. And you can't keep doing the same thing over and over. And I have defended Bowles to the ends of the earth, and it's something is not working. But this is a team that it seems like when things are going right, instead of continuing to keep the foot on the gas and continuing to press forward, they all tense up and they wait for the inevitable. What's going to go wrong this time? How are we going to blow it this time? And it's like they expect it to happen. And you know, a more specific example is Emeka Egbuka. I love Emeka Egbuka. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowl receiver in this league. I think he is the future for the next 10 years for the Buccaneers. But he has been snake bit now because he had some crucial drops. And now all of a sudden, we saw it on Sunday against the Saints. He has an opportunity. It wasn't an easy catch. The throw wasn't perfect. It was in the rain. He had to adjust in air, but he got both hands on it. And that's a catch you expect Emeka Egbuka to make. And he's not making any of them right now. And I think the more he presses, the more mistakes he makes because he's trying too hard to pull himself out of this funk. Same thing is happening with Zion McCollum. Same thing is happening with Servassier Dennis. Same thing is happening up and down this roster because they're all waiting for that one thing to go wrong and the entire game to fall apart. And I think that's where they are. And I don't know how they pull themselves out of this.
And I'll tell you this. I mean, honestly, this team could have started off 0-2. They played Atlanta in week 1, 3-point win, beat Houston by 1 point, squeaked by the Jets. So when you start winning close games, 3 points and under, I mean, that's a swing game that can go either way. And so I think what happened is after the Bucs beat Seattle and San Fran, first of all, this defense has been giving up. Outside of the first Saints game, they've been giving up some points. I mean, just flat out. And so that's the elephant in the room when you talk about Todd Bowles. He calls the defense. So that's his baby, and, you know, it falls on his watch. I think the Detroit Lions ripped the heart and soul out of the Tampa Bay Bucs. I really think if they would have won that game, which is hard to do at Detroit, it was only 24-9, but they just stunk it up. That led into that awful performance against the Saints offensively the next game. Those next 3 teams, New England, Buffalo, the Rams, completely exposed the Bucs defense. Arizona was a tight one too, 3-point game. New Orleans went in there and just said, even if you're better than us, you're not going to win this game because you don't know how to win when it matters. See, James, if I punch you, you're going to say, hey, wait a minute, Marcus. If I punch you 3 times, you know you're in a fight. And so I'm just waiting. So from the very first play of the entire game, that kickoff return out to midfield told Tampa Bay, first of all, their return teams have been atrocious. But that first play said, you're in a fight. And what are you going to do about it? And all they had was one counterpunch. And they thought that they were going to keep the game close enough to win in the end, but the weather didn't help them. As far as the Emeka thing goes, I think it's mental with him. He battled some injuries a month ago. He carried the load when he had to carry the load. Once you do that too much, and that's on film, you said snake bitten. Cut off the head of the snake and the body will go. Emeka was the head of that offense. And if you take him out, and if you look at his last 6 or 7 games, they've neutralized him, and that offense hasn't done much.
Yeah, and you mentioned the injuries. I wonder, and I know he's not on the injury report at all, I wonder if he is still battling some stuff because You remember when he had that hamstring injury, and we're like, there's no chance he's going to play, but he ended up playing in that game, and it really was because they didn't have anyone else. And so how much is it him just battling through it because they don't really have anyone else? And then he starts having some drops and stuff like that and just loses the confidence, and now we're seeing him just, have no confidence at all. But coming up next, we're going to talk about some injuries, including Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan. Todd Bowles gave an update on both. We'll talk about that coming up next. All right, well, NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. I was looking at FanDuel for this game. Tampa Bay, 4.5-point favorite as of right now, and minus 235 on the money line, and 44.5 is the over-under. That is just your overall popular bets, but definitely check out during the game, see what other bets they're offering. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, we're back with another segment of the Squad Show. Just a reminder, this is just extra content that we do twice a week. This doesn't take anything away from what James does. He does a great job. So check out his show daily, Monday through Friday. So let's dive into the injury report because this team, we talk about snake betting. This team's been snake betting all season long. But some news on Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan. Both were light participants the last 2 days in practice, but Todd Bowles made it sound like they're at least in play to play on Thursday, which would be obviously a massive get for the Bucs offense.
Well, I think it sounds good. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but they almost have to play because this team is not playing well enough to even win the division. So, I mean, we were talking, mid-December. You talk about J-Mac, you talk about Mike coming back. But, I'm just not sure even when Chris came back and when Bucky came back if they even got back in some type of rhythm. Those guys haven't played together, and everybody that they've played has been at their necks. So when you start getting guys back like a Chris, a Bucky, then you lose a Tristan. Now Michael Jordan has to slide back in. Bredesen's down. So they just can't get it all together at once. I don't know if it's bad luck. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's just the bad luck of the draw this season, but it just seems like they just can't put together a cohesive unit offensively when you talk about the injuries. And then when you look at we talked about Hassan Reddick coming back. He didn't do much. He went down. It almost looked like he didn't even want to play. I'm sorry. That's just what it looked like to me. You don't want to put J-Mac out there too soon. He's still got the neck. He needs to practice 2 more weeks. They don't tackle in practice, so you won't know if he can take a shot or not, the way they talked about Bucky's shoulder, his ankle. So it's like I think J-Mac should be the last guy to come off of injured reserve, all right? As far as Mike, if Mike isn't Mike, you don't want him out there at 80% either. So it's like, put Tez back out there. He barely even played the other night. I mean, he kind of did what he could do when he was out there in the last month or so. But as far as the injuries are concerned, I just don't think they can put 11 guys out, their best 11 out there at any given moment in the last all season, really. Their best 11 have not been out there. And I don't think they can coach their way out of it because they haven't proved it yet. So when you start getting guys like Dean coming back, hopefully Tyke can come back. I mean, he's a young guy. You want to see him back out there. I just don't think they've been able to put their best 11 out there on either side of the ball.
And James, real quick to Marcus's point, Hassan Reddick did not participate yesterday, was a light participant today. So I'm sure about his status as well.
Well, who needs Hassan Reddick when you got Jason Pierre-Paul back,
Right.
Dude that hasn't played football in 2 years and really didn't play all that well his final 2 years in the NFL. But and I love JPP, I do. But that signing to me is it's meaningless. He got signed to the practice squad. We'll see if he gets elevated to the active roster. But I think that was more of a leadership type thing than anything else. And if that is the case, I don't know what that says about your locker room, maybe because they have been missing so many of these key players and these key voices in the locker room that they needed something else. But as far as the receivers are concerned, Marcus, I'm with you 100%. I don't think Jalen McMillan should be back this week. I'm encouraged that he's in play for this week, but I think it's a little too soon with Mike. Obviously you don't want him going out there too quick, but I think even the threat of him being out there, like if he lines up and maybe he's on a snap count, maybe they're going to utilize him in certain situations. But if you start with the ball and the first 2 plays of the game, you throw the ball to Mike Evans, it could be an out route. Let him get out of bounds, catch the ball real quick, pick up 4 or 5, get out of bounds so he's not even getting hit. From that moment on, you're setting the tone that our guy's back and he is a threat and you better pay attention. That's when it's going to open up for Godwin. That's when it's going to open up for Ibuka. That's when it's going to open up for Cam and well, not Cam because he quits on routes, but it'll open up for Tez, for Shep. And that sets the tone, much like Marcus, you referred to the kickoff by the Saints to open the game. That immediately would set the tone. And I think in seeing that, just having that happen for this offense, all of a sudden, Ibuka's playing a little looser. Baker's playing a little more confident. Godwin's playing a little looser. And you might see the offense start to click. The biggest problem is going to be the offensive line. That's been the story all season. 8 different starting combinations in 13 weeks. You cannot build any kind of continuity with that. You cannot instill any kind of trust in your injured quarterback who's getting the crap kicked out of him from the interior of the offensive line because they keep changing all the time. So that is where the Falcons are going to be able to take advantage in this game. And again, you got to set the tone early. Quick passes. Marcus, you even said you don't think he could throw the deep ball right now. So get the ball out of your hands quick. Get it in the hands of your playmakers. Dink and dunk the entire way down the field. Worked for New Orleans against you. It can work against Atlanta. This needs to be death by 1,000 paper cuts on Thursday.
Yeah, and I agree with you on the Jason Pierre-Paul signing, and I actually agree with one of the comments. It says more to me about the leadership on defense than anything, because you're not signing someone like that thinking he's going to come in and get you 3 or 4 sacks here at the end of the year. I mean, you're signing that maybe because you think you're mentally weak on defense or something, and you need a tone setter, because that's one thing Jason Pierre-Paul will do is he's mentally strong, and he's going to be a leader in that locker room. And so I think that's more of what the signing was, because as you mentioned, even his last couple of years in the league, he wasn't doing anything, and then he hadn't played in the league in the last 2 years on top of that. So I feel like that was definitely a leadership signing as well. But what is the person right now listed on the injury report that you guys are most concerned about? Obviously, Tristan Wirfs, he's been a light participant the last 2 days, didn't play this last week. Cade Otton did not participate either day. Tyke Smith, that was one, James, we talked about before we started recording. He did not participate either day, and he's been one of the few bright spots on that defense.
I don't think I have just one. I mean, when you talk about Ben Bredesen and Tristan being out or questionable, I think for that left side of that offensive line, I just don't know how they're going to be able to protect Baker. I think Tyke too, because I mean he's a sneaky cover guy. He's a playmaker. I'm not overly concerned about Jalen and Mike because they've been out of the lineup. And to your point about Cade Otton too. I mean, he can be a weapon when he feels like it. It depends on what side of the bed he rolls out on. But I think the JPP thing, I'm a little up in the air about it because leadership comes by example. more so to younger players than it does what you did in the past. And so, like, he hasn't played in a couple of years. Obviously, Levante probably gives him a little more lip service than he does production. Antoine is going to be Antoine. And so it's like, who is the leader of the defense? Are you going to go by example, or are you going to go by who used to get busy on that defense, was just showing back up, JPP? I mean, how can a guy like McCullum just listen to him, if he's getting beat deep or he misses a tackle? So I don't know if that's good or bad for the locker room, and we'll find out in the next 4 weeks. But I just think that they haven't had any leadership by example. And if they have, it's Vita Vea. I think he's the one most consistent run and pass rusher, and run defense and pass defense. He's been the guy that has saved them. He's made some things happen. He's been the most disruptive guy, the most havoc player that we've seen. So that's where your leadership comes from. Now, I don't know if he's a vocal guy or not, but I think JPP brings some credibility, but he's going to have to earn it. He's going to have to get in practice and learn the playbook and show these guys, hey, this is what I used to do, and this is why they brought me here. But I think they need more out of Levante. Levante, I don't think, has done a good job of bringing Dennis along. Dennis looks clueless in pass drops. I mean, they clearly hit a spot route, I think, for a first down, and he was standing right there on the hash mark. All he had to do, it's like he knew what to do, but he didn't. So it's like, if he jumps that route, that's a pick six. There's a lack of playmaking on the defense. And so I don't know if leadership is really the issue, because these are grown men. Leadership comes in a lot of different forms. Like, Baker's the leader of the team. Any quarterback should be. But leadership comes in a lot of different ways. But I think they need some leadership on the offensive line. I mean, we saw veteran guys jumping off sides. I mean, costing yards. And so you just can't talk me to death. You have to go out and put up or shut up.
Yeah, and the last thing that I'll say on JPP is this could be a move where if he shows in practice that he might be able to go, you go ahead and you bring him up for a game, and he's a rotational guy. But I think the more important aspect of the addition, which is why I don't want to discount it too much. I know I was pretty snarky about it a couple of minutes ago, but it's the meeting rooms. It's helping to, get Braswell and Yaya to, refine some of their pass rush moves a little bit. We saw Yaya working with Simeon Rice during the offseason. His pass rush has improved over last year. The evidence is there. So I do think he does add something to the team. I just don't think it's going to show up on the stat sheet under his name. So there is that aspect to it. The one but to get back to your question, Jaron, which one am I most concerned about? It's Tyke Smith. Without a doubt, it's Tyke Smith. This is a quarterback in Kirk Cousins that, even when he sucked last year, he still shredded the Buccaneers and Todd Bowles' defense. When you lose not just your best defender, but the best player on your team this season in a must-win matchup against a division rival where you could be setting yourself up to now miss the playoffs if you lose this game, not having him on the field is going to be huge. It was a little easier to take, seeing that Christian Izien went from a did not participate to a limited participant. So at least you can slide Izien in there if needed. But not having Tyke on the back end with Antoine Winfield Jr., it's going to make a bad defense even worse. And that's really where my concern of the injury report is. Like I was talking to you guys, I love Cade Otton. But if Cade Otton doesn't play, that's not going to be the reason the Bucs lose this game. Payne Durham can go out there and can block and can catch passes. Devin Culp can catch passes. Like, it's not going to devastate the team to not have Cade Otton out there. Tyke Smith, it changes everything as far as what they're going to be able to do.
Yeah, they definitely need him back. I guess if there's one positive, the JPP signing isn't the most surprising signing of the week in the NFL. I think that probably goes to Phillip Rivers coming out of retirement to play for the Colts. I know, and they even said he's a semifinalist, I think, for the Hall of Fame. But if he makes the roster, they got to take him back off, and he has to wait 5 more years. So That was a wild sighting, and it sounds like he'll probably be the starter at some point this year. They got some to play for still. But all right, coming up next, we're going to go around the NFL, including talking about Carolina's game against the Saints this week, and we'll talk about other scores that you guys or other games that you guys need to keep an eye on. Don't go anywhere. That's coming up next.
There's no reason to let big wireless drain your wallet, especially during the holidays. Right now, Mint Mobile is running their best deal of the year. All of their unlimited plans are 50% off. That means you can lock in 3, 6, or even 12 months of unlimited premium wireless for just $15 a month. It's the easiest way to take your overpriced phone bill and give it the full Scrooge treatment. And what makes this even better is how simple Mint makes the switch. No contracts, no nonsense, just real savings and real quality service. Turn your expensive wireless present into a huge wireless savings future by switching to Mint. Shop Mint Unlimited plans at mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Limited time offer, upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan is required. $15 a month equivalent. Taxes and fees, initial plan term only. More than 35 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com.
All right, we're back for another episode of the Bucs Squad, looking around the NFL. Obviously, the one that everyone's got to keep their eye on is Carolina and New Orleans. Can New Orleans pull off the upset again? And not just upset as in they beat the Bucs last week. They beat Carolina earlier this year. So can they pull it off for a second time? Because Tampa's really going to need some help. Although with 4 games left, it's pretty much going to come down to those 2 games against Carolina at this point. But you would like to have at least a game lead or something like that. Maybe you can put the division away. If you can win this week, New Orleans upsets them, and then you beat Carolina, maybe you can kind of put the division away. Then you don't have to play your guys in week 18 and can finally get healthy this season. But is there other games that you guys are kind of having your eye on?
Well, for me, I'm looking at several. I'm not going to lie. I mean, you talk about some big matchups. I think the Bears are on upset alert. I think Shedeur Sanders got screwed at the end of this last game. I thought he's playing with his hair on fire, proving everybody wrong on a bad team. They could go in Chicago and shake some things up after the Bears took that loss to the Packers. See, I think in this league, a lot of it is mental when you go week to week. I think the Chargers against the Chiefs is going to be huge. Hats off to Jim Harbaugh, the way they finished that game last night against the Eagles, finishing with that interception. And Bills and Patriots. I mean, how could you not tune into that? I mean, are these Patriots for real? Are the Bills ever going to stop anybody and quit playing from behind forever? I thought the Bengals gave that one away. Nobody cares about the Raiders and the Eagles. But when you think about the Packers and the Broncos, I mean, that could be – I'm not going to predict it, but I think that's a Super Bowl type game. I mean, those are 2 teams that could luck their way into the Super Bowl. Nobody's really talking about the Broncos the way they should be, but they're better than you think. 6-0 at home. The Packers, I think, if they want to keep up with the Bears now, that's a game that you want to really, really watch. Lions and Rams. Lions still trying to find a way to get back into the hunt, and the Rams are just the Rams. Now, you're talking about the Saints and the Panthers. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think the Saints are going to beat the Panthers. And I think they're going to beat them because they're not supposed to. I just haven't seen the team in the NFC South yet just rise above and just separate themselves other than the first 8 weeks of the season, Tampa Bay Bucs. But ever since then, you wouldn't know who was in first place if you just watched the game. I mean, even the Falcons played decent for a half. But, they're mathematically eliminated. But I think the Saints going home against the Panthers, I think the Panthers are ripe for the picking. And I think the Saints figured something out. See, sometimes in the NFL from week to week, when you play one team, like when the Saints did that to the Buccaneers and went into their house and just slapped them in the face, right? I don't think the Saints, because they have nothing to really lose or gain, they can play with their hair on fire. They can say, we just beat the number 1 seed and we'll beat the other one too. And then they'll go into the locker room feeling like they underachieved and they're just as good as anybody. So I just think from my perspective, those games are huge. You just can't trust the Colts anymore. They looked awful. I know the quarterback went down, and they're playing a Seahawks team that dialed up 31 points in the second half. So there's about 6 games that I think are going to dictate the rest of the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we're dialed into the Panthers and Saints, but the big one that I'm looking at is Detroit and Los Angeles. Now, look, I've been playing with the playoff machine. If the Rams beat the Lions, assuming the Bears beat Cleveland, right? The Bears can lose week 16 and week 17 with the Lions winning both. And that final playoff spot is going to be left to week 18 when the Lions go to Chicago. That game will mean everything. So that is a massive, massive matchup when it comes to, not just playoff seeding, but, who is actually going to get that final spot? Because I'm assuming Green Bay goes on to win the division, right? I think you guys are probably in the same boat because that would be one of the Bears' losses in those other weeks. So that game alone can completely shape the rest of the NFC landscape moving forward, through the rest of the month. Outside of that, the other ones that I'm kind of interested in is Baltimore, Cincinnati again. For the love of all things holy, the Bengals are like the worst run defense in football, like historically bad. Can we give Derrick Henry more than 10 carries in this game? Because I think that was a huge reason that Baltimore lost the first time around. And somehow Cincinnati is still sticking around in the hunt. Baltimore has to win this game to try to catch Pittsburgh. Cincinnati has to win this game to try to continue to keep pace and potentially overtake, the teams ahead of them in that division. So I think that's going to be a really wild one. And then the only other game that I really have circled and I'm super interested in is Buffalo, New England. Like, we don't really know who Buffalo is, right? They're very Jekyll and Hyde this year. They win some incredible games and then they lose games that they probably shouldn't. And then, we asked the question a month ago, is New England for real? I think they are. I think you guys are convinced that they are. So this could be an AFC championship preview, that New England gets to host here. And this game, I don't know both of their records off the top of my head, but I'm not sure that Buffalo can overtake New England to win the division. But if they win this game, it certainly makes things a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. They can win the division if they win this game. The division's over if New England wins it.
Okay.
So New England would have a 3-game lead, but they would have both wins over Buffalo this year. So that'd be the first time Buffalo hasn't won the division in 3 or 4 years
since Tom Brady.
I'm about to say it actually might be since Brady left. So that's definitely going to be an interesting game. Cleveland and Chicago, I do like that one too because Shedeur was someone that I was high on coming out. I was actually shocked that he kept falling in the draft. Personally, and last week I thought he really showed a lot of signs of growth. Now I think it was I just still don't get the fourth or the 2-point conversion play that they called. I mean, he's throwing for 364 yards, 3 touchdowns. How do you take the ball out of his hands? It almost looked, and I don't like going this route, but it almost looks like a coach that never really wanted him on the team kind of thing. And so he's trying to do anything he can to win the game without Shedeur getting the credit for winning it kind of thing. Because he knows if Shedeur completes the 2-point conversion, the talk is going to be about him. But also, I keep an eye on that just because I want to see Myles Garrett get the sack record this season.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really cool to see if he can pull that off. I think is he at 20 or 21? Can't remember which one he's at.
You can keep talking. I'll look it up.
Okay, I think it's 20, but I could be wrong. But yeah, so that's another thing I have an eye on. Outside of that,
he's at 20.
He's at 20. Okay. Yeah, the Monday night game I don't think's any good. Pittsburgh and Miami. Not really interested in the Sunday night game, which is weird with Dallas and Minnesota. Those were two teams before the year at least had some high hopes. I do really like the Denver Green Bay game. I think one of the reasons why people are sleeping on Denver is because when I've watched them this year, their defense is incredible, but their offense just leaves a lot to be desired, kind of thing. And maybe it's because I'm just not a full believer in Bo Nix. But with that being said, they win, so who cares? I mean, and that's why they can win a Super Bowl.
Well, I'm gonna go back to the Cleveland point, Jaron, and I think you're right, spot on with the pulling Shador out of the game for the 2-point conversion. Let's face it, the guy might get fired anyways, but Shador has been the talk of the Browns since he's been drafted. Okay,
Yeah.
and so you don't want one thing that they don't want to do in the NFL is to be proved wrong. So Shador was not supposed to get in there and perform like that. He was supposed to perform like a fifth rounder. And the one thing that when you prove the entire league wrong, let me give you one example, like a Randy Moss. See, when Randy's fall wasn't like Shador's fall, and Randy had other stuff going on, but when he went from a top 5 pick all the way down to pick 21 or whatever it was to the Vikings, then he comes out and tears the league up. Sometimes they make some guys get it out the mud, and it's because of the way they come into the league. And so Cleveland didn't care if they won or lost that game, and they just didn't want Shador to get the credit. And sometimes quarterbacks are bigger than their head coaches. One thing about the Myles Garrett situation, he's playing lights out. I've always liked him, but we got to give some kudos to Mason Graham, my fellow Michigan Wolverine. He's a top 5 guy. He's a guy that has been whooping people on the inside. And so when you have a defensive tackle like that, who can command a double team, no one in the league can block Myles one-on-one. You almost can't even chip him with a running back or even leave a tight end in the game. But it always pays dividends when you have a 3 technique or an interior guy who that if you don't protect from the inside out first, I just think his presence has allowed Myles to be Myles at this point of his career. Another thing that I'll say is this Dolphins-Steelers game is very important. And sometimes I think Mike T coaches good enough just to not have that losing season. Like he's going to be a Hall of Fame guy. They'll forever be an 8-8, 9-8, tied for first. So you have to realize that the Steelers will beat the Dolphins just so that Mike can make sure he doesn't have a losing season. So, but I tell you what, though. Keep an eye, and nobody cares. But I thought the Vikings were very, very impressive. I mean, you talk about anytime you shut a team out 31-0, regardless of who it is, I think that's a great performance. Obviously, I'm always going to champion my Michigan guys, J.J. McCarthy and those guys. So, I mean, I think it's a very interesting, pivotal week in the NFL. And I will tell you this about the Broncos. Their defense is for real. And a lot of times your offense doesn't have to be great. You just don't want your offense to lose the game. So when you have a defense that's that suffocating and that talented and everything starts up front, it's like your offense doesn't have to be good. Just like our 97 Michigan team. They were okay on offense, but when you have a defense that doesn't give up points, that turns the ball over, and an offense that can ball control, even if they get a field goal, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and just because I have yet to talk about him on any of these squad shows, I'll weigh in on the Shador Sanders stuff. And look, he's exceeded my expectations. But I didn't have high expectations to begin with. I felt from watching him at Colorado, I was like, you know what? He's getting a lot of hype because of who his dad is. It is truly what I believed. Now, he's played pretty well. He hasn't been amazing outside of this most recent game when he really just absolutely tore it up. My reservation is I need to see more from him. It's much like what Ross Jackson and I talked about on the crossover for the Bucs and Saints last week. The Saints don't know if Tyler Shuck is the guy, and you're not gonna know by the end of the season. I would need to see a full season of Shador. Now, how he performs against the Bears and the Bills and the Steelers, the next couple of weeks, that can go a really, really long way. If he goes out and he performs the way he did with the Titans, and he's making some of those tough throws, and he's putting up those kinds of numbers, I'll be the first one to say, you know what? I was dead wrong on Shador. I think this dude can handle it in the NFL. but I still see a lot of the problems that I think are going to create issues for him in the NFL, much like I felt like Michael Penix couldn't process fast enough in college to adapt to the NFL game. And we've seen him struggle with that with Shedeur. It's a lack of pocket awareness. I want to see him get better at that before I say, you know what, this guy can lead a franchise for real.
Yeah, I think he's earned the right to be the starter heading into next season. But then after that, we'll see what ends up happening with the team. I will say the reason why I didn't want to say that like Stefanski is sabotaging Shedeur is because I saw him do the same thing to Baker. Like he was doing the same stuff to Baker. And maybe it's, Baker, obviously big personality. And maybe it is like Marcus talked about where he doesn't like that the quarterback's getting all the attention. And so maybe that's why, because now, Jacoby Brissett wasn't getting all the attention. Joe Flacco wasn't getting all the attention when he had those guys. But now he's back to doing stuff he was doing with Baker when Shedeur's there. So is it because of that? Is it because these guys have, they're polarizing figures and he doesn't like that all the attention's on them because he was doing it to Baker and he's doing it again to Shedeur. But all right, coming up next, we're going to do our last little preview for the game and then give our score predictions. Don't go anywhere. All right, Bucs Squad Show. We're back for one more segment here. We're going to give our score predictions and our final breakdown of the game. This is one of those things that it feels weird to pick the Bucs because of how much they've been struggling. But man, if they can't win this one, I just don't know what happens the rest. I mean, what happens the rest of the season is I don't think they make the playoff because I think Carolina will beat the Saints this weekend, and so you need to be able to stay even with them heading into these final 2 games against them. So I think they're going to win. I think it's probably going to be pretty similar to the first meeting in terms of it's going to be like a 23-20 type of game, even 23-17 kind of game. But I don't have much faith in the defense, and I think Bijan Robinson's going to have a big game, kind of like he did in the first game. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a much better game rushing, and then the receiving kind of comes down kind of thing in this one. But I do think Tampa, if they don't get this win again, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think they do pull this one off.
I think to James's point, it's going to come down to Kirk Cousins. I mean, if he turns the ball over twice like he did last week, I think that increases the Bucs' chances tremendously. I mean, Cousins didn't play extremely well, 15-30 for 162, 2 interceptions, but Robinson's a guy that can take the game over. And I think it comes down to the Bucs defense stopping him and honestly making Kirk Cousins beat him. But I think that the Saints exposed a few things defensively for the Bucs. Attack the linebackers. I mean, they just don't cover hash to hash well. And I think if they utilize their tight end a little bit more, Pitts is a guy too that can, make some plays. We don't know what Drake London's situation is, but it's almost watching like a heavyweight fight where both guys just got beat and you don't really know what to expect. So I think for Tampa Bay, this is a game. I don't think they'll win the way Seattle did. They're just not as explosive. They just can't turn it on and just give you 31 and a half offensively. And they haven't been turning the ball over enough to have that many opportunities that Seattle had in that second half. And they're not going to return a kickoff either to start the third quarter. So don't expect the Bucs to do what Seattle did. But I think Tampa Bay is going to win this game, and I think it's going to be something like a 24-16 game. I think the Bucs will probably get up early on Atlanta, and I just don't think Atlanta's good enough. I think Raheem is distracted, head coach that is. I just don't think Atlanta's good enough, and they just got mollywopped to the point where they're mathematically eliminated. I'm not sure how much their players care once they're out. Everyone's playing for incentives and stats at this point and contract extensions. So when you're playing against a team like that, it's almost like fighting like a wounded dog. I mean, they'll put their back to the wall and they'll fight back, but they're going to get their backs put to the wall. So I'm going Bucs 24-16. What I would like to see from the Bucs is that vertical passing game. Listen, James, I know you want them to nickel and dime. Quick game. That's going to win the game. But I think when you win it, but you have to play for moving forward. They do have to work on their drop back vertical game because they're going to need it. They don't even run block well enough against good teams. Atlanta's not a good team. But in a game like this, I think you need to work on situational football, and I think you need to work on sharpening your blade for things that you'll need later, others weapons and situation, and use this game. Let Godwin get off. Let him go for 8 for 150 if you can't run the ball. But the one thing they need to do is get Emeka's confidence back. Now, if he gets the targets and he's dropping, then I think you got to go elsewhere because you'll mess around and lose the game trying to get his confidence back. I think the Bucs need to play a complete complementary football game. Everybody needs their touches. I think Bucky needs to run the ball. He needs to get a 100-yard game. Okay, I know Tucker and White are doing good in their relief pitch situations, but you need Baker's confidence to come back too. I don't know if he still believes in everyone around him starting up front. So if the Bucs are going to be unhealthy on that left side, and they've got the big rookie in there, Chukwuma, and then you got Michael Jordan in there, I don't know if you work on your drop back passing game, James. So I just think they need to play well enough to win, game plan it up, Grizz, but they need to get the offense back, if you will, and get this team back on track.
I'm in a spot now where, I take a look, and again, we're talking as if Drake London isn't going to play. They have Darnell Mooney. He has made big plays against the Bucs. Casey Washington, he had some big plays in week 1. Kyle Pitts, all of his career best games have come against the Bucs. And then you still have the threats of Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. Now, I think I disagree with you, Jaron. I think Bijan is going to be a bigger factor in the passing game than the run game historically. That's how it's gone against the Buccaneers. He hasn't done a great job on the ground. What he's done a great job of is yards after the catch. You go back to week 1, he had a 50-yard touchdown on a screen pass. That was on Servassier Dennis. That was a terrible angle, missed the tackle. It was bad. My concern is the offensive line. And yeah, it'll be great if Tristan is able to go. That doesn't help the interior. And Atlanta brings some big guys through the interior. You're talking about Onyemata. You're talking about, Leonard Floyd and they have a decent defense. And for an offensive line that can't protect Baker, for a quarterback that's injured and doesn't trust his protection, I said that I was out of doubts to give Todd Bowles the benefit of. And I'm not going to waver off of that. I don't think the Bucs win this game. I really don't. I think they are in such a downward spiral right now that they're not going to be able to pull themselves out this week. Todd Bowles, as the head coach of the Buccaneers, 0-3 on Thursday Night Football. 0-3. He can't win on the short weeks. Monday to Sunday, same problem. So it's the perfect storm for a massive letdown and really signaling the end of what could have been and the beginning of what's to come. So I see Atlanta winning this one. I'll say 30-21. I
think Atlanta's going to score 30?
I do. I don't believe in this defense right now. I don't believe in anything that they are doing. I don't think Todd Bowles can dial up a game plan that Kirk Cousins isn't going to be able to pick apart until they show me that they're not going to trip over themselves and shoot themselves in the foot repeatedly and leave, 20-yard radiuses around these receivers. I don't think there's a team in the NFL that couldn't put up 30 on the Bucs right now.
Yeah. I also think if it is the end of the Todd Bowles era, I think they do need to go offensive minded at head coach. Personally, that's the route I would go. And I think anytime you have a really good quarterback, a guy that you think's a franchise top 10 type guy, marry him with a head coach that's an offensive head coach, and usually good things happen. And so that's the route I would go. Also, I was thinking about this. So first off, weather looks beautiful. It's going to be like mid-50s, no wind, no rain, way different than what we just saw on Sunday. So that shouldn't play a factor in any drops or ball security or anything like that. But I was thinking about this when we were talking about Bijan. If I'm Atlanta, I'm having him return at least one kick in this game.
Why not?
Exactly.
Fire him up.
Tampa has been terrible at it, and then he's also really good at making people miss. And I think they are going to maybe throw that wrinkle in maybe at some point if they need a crucial one, because, man, they're having struggles tackling just your regular returner. If you put a guy like Bijan back there, I think good things could happen for Atlanta, and it could come at a crucial moment. But I just feel like, again, if not this game, when? And maybe that's the answer. Maybe it's never. Maybe the answer is never. But I guess we'll find out on Thursday.
You know what? I don't do this often, but I'm going to change my opinion. I think James got me sold. I'm picking the Falcons too. I'm flipping like I'm a 5-star recruit the day before signing day. I'm flipping. I'm going Atlanta. If he thinks they can score, I'm going 27-24. I got Atlanta, and I'm flipping. Yep, I just flipped. And because I just thought about something. Todd Bowles plays a lot of man-to-man, and when he gets in trouble, he starts to blitz. And I really think that Atlanta is going to use Bijan in the pass game, just like James said, a lot more. When you start to get a running back out of the box and you start to motion or you line him out wide the way the Saints used to use Alvin, he's not a running back anymore. Now that's a linebacker checking a space player, a supreme athlete in space. And that screen was a great call in week one when you talk about when he took off on Dennis. Man-to-man is tough on linebackers, especially when a running back, if he's in the backfield and he has a three-way go, right, left, vertical. But once you start to motion that guy and bump him out, what you're going to create is a matchup problem. So let's say if Bijan motions out of the backfield and it's empty, are you going to put your corner on him, and then now your linebacker has to check a receiver? So it's one of those things where I think if Kirk Cousins and those guys can dial up some man beaters, even a mesh route where he just runs something underneath and you clear it out with a couple picks, if they get the ball to Bijan in space, I mean, it could be a long, long afternoon, and that might be the game plan. So, James, you know what? You got me, brother. I mean, you have flipped me. I'm a former coach, and I'm kind of scheming, and I'm game planning, and I'm thinking if Todd Bowles wants to get cute and blitz me, then then your linebackers, God bless them, check in a supreme athlete in space in Bijan.
Yeah, and look, for those of you in the live chat, I would love nothing more than for you to come on to my live reaction show right after the game and laugh at how wrong I am. Like, I'm here for it. I am more than happy to put every one of those comments up on the show. But, you know, I have picked this team to win so many times with full confidence, and they have it's blown up in my face. You know, in a lot of these games that it should not have happened. Todd Bowles was out-coached, out-schemed, out-everythinged against the New Orleans Saints. You should have been able to win that game with Teddy Bridgewater and your entire practice squad elevated with your starters on the sideline like you clinched the first-round bye. There was no excuse for that. And until they show some sign of life that these guys could go out there and play the football that we saw in the first 6 weeks of the NFL season, I'm not going to pick them to win again. I have to see it before I can convince myself it's going to happen.
You know what? I'm going to do this for Tampa then. I will flip my pick to Falcons 27-23. And this is why. How many times have we seen on College Game Day where the whole crew picks the same team and it's like always a jinx that team loses? We're going the jinx route on this one.
I just said that real quick. One of the dads on my son's hockey team, he is a diehard Hoosier. And everybody on that pregame show picked Ohio State to beat Indiana. And I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, the Hoosiers just won the Big Ten championship because Ohio State just got jinxed. You watch. And sure enough, and then he looked at me at the end. He goes, "You called it. They jinxed him." So, hey, squad show jinx. Let's do this thing.
We're gonna go now. The thing is, if Tampa ends up winning, we're gonna have to do this every episode. We're gonna have to pick against them every single time.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
For sure. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching us on the Squad Show. As James mentioned, he's going to go live right after the game. Kind of like if y'all remember how we did Sunday Night Football. And then Marcus, me, and Ryan will go live after James goes live. And so it might be, midnight, 1 Eastern time, somewhere around there when we end up going live. But that's the plan right now. But hopefully they will lose this game, since that's our prediction. We're going to go with that. But until next time, fire the cannons.